Get Psyched with Nurse Valerie. Here we are at Simpson's Funeral Museum, established in 2014. Let's go on in and see what curator Scott Simpson has to share with us today. All right, so welcome to Psyched with Nurse Valerie. Medical, mystery, history, and more. So today, here we are at Simpson Funeral Museum with Scott Simpson, our curator. We're here in Chatham, Virginia. Scott's going to give us a little background and give us some history. So, Scott, tell me how this museum came about.
Oh goodness, that's a long story, but I'll try to shorten it for you. My father still maintains his Virginia funeral director's license. He went to Cincinnati Mortuary School and graduated in 1971. And we've been in the funeral business ever since. In the early 80s, my father and a couple of his friends invested in a casket company down in Graham, North Carolina, called Mastercraft Casket Company. And so we've been in the casket business ever since, but we love funeral service.
Yes.
And the purpose of our museum here is to pay tribute to the honorable profession of funeral service in funeral history, specifically in the United States. It's quite a unique history, and you can basically say it really started in the Civil War, because that's when embalming was invented by Dr. Thomas Holmes. So that's just kind of the basics. My family is from Chatham, which is the town where we are, where the museum is, Chatham, Virginia. Born and raised, we love this little town. There's a lot of history here in this town, actually, too. And so the reason we put the museum in this particular space, in this building, is we are in what was the town of Chatham's very first undertaking parlor.
First undertaking
And
parlor?
it was called...
Wow.
It was called Chatham Furniture and Undertaking Company.
So, you know, not to get off the subject too much, but when I rode through here before and you mentioned the word Chatham and then furniture, textile, just quickly, I wanted to ask, is there any relation to, there used to be a Chatham Manufacturing in Elkin, North Carolina? Any relationship to that?
That may be Chatham County, because I know North Carolina has a county called Chatham County.
No, this is in Surrey County.
Oh, okay.
But I heard you said something about the caskets. So, Scott, what is the difference between a casket and a coffin?
You must have read my notes that I have for my tours. The difference is the shape. Anything that's wide at the shoulders, narrow at the feet, is a coffin.
Okay.
Whereas more rectangular shape, basically squared corners, flat sides, is a casket. So if the sides are flared, either from the top to the bottom or from the front to from the head end to the foot end, that's a coffin.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people think that those are the same.
No.
And I guess you could say they're the same, but there is a difference.
There is. I've been studying some of this. So you mentioned the Civil War. So we went to, in Lynchburg, Virginia. There is a lot of history, and it's not necessarily a funeral home museum, but there's some history, and they kind of address that a little bit as well.
At the cemetery.
Yes.
I've been there. That's a very well done little museum.
Oh,
there
there's so much to that. That's in. I don't want to steal the thunder, but they actually, talk about, People steal people's bodies out of graves, for medical science. So, as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, I was really interested in the funeral home, because it is really a special place. It's sacred, in terms of helping families to get to that next level and to grieve properly.
Absolutely.
From that perspective.
Absolutely.
How does someone decide if they get a coffin or a casket? Or is it just they decide, I like the look of this?
Well, in the United States, you're going to see a casket about 95% of the time.
Okay.
For earth burial.
All right.
Cremation is a different story.
Yeah.
But over in Europe, for example, the coffin style is still the dominant design.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we Oh, I'm so excited. Like I said to the viewers out there, I told you that I was dying to come to the Simpson Funeral Museum.
Yes.
My goal is to come out alive. So, with that being said, if you'll just tell us a little bit before you show us this magnificent place, how has the funeral industry changed throughout the years?
Oh, goodness. Well, specifically the last 25 to 30 years, cremation has really come into its own.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I mean, it's hard for me to really nail it down.
Okay. Can't read people's minds, can you?
No, I wish I could.
Right?
It would make life easier. I think one reason that cremation has become so popular is, for one, it's a trend.
Okay.
Things like that become the overwhelming trend in society.
It's kind of the new normal.
Yes. And also, this is the part that pains me related to cremation, is a lot of the general public's reverence for what a funeral represents, the significance of it, the importance of it, has changed. And in my opinion, not changing in a good way.
Yeah.
It's almost as if death has become an inconvenience for some people, and they want to just get it. What do we need to do to put a bow on this? And see, we, on the other hand, separate how important the funeral is psychologically, and for the grief process, and for the family and the loved ones, people who cared about the person who's just passed away. The funeral is kind of the first step in that healing. But some people, and it just makes me sad for them, because they don't really realize, I don't think, what they're doing. I mean, they don't even have a memorial service. They literally, it's almost as if grandma just disappeared one day. She's there one day and then she's gone the next. No funeral, no gathering of friends and family to say goodbye and to help lean on each other to start the process of dealing with the loss.
Yeah, to me, a funeral, the actual viewing piece, is about the psychological closure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yes. Scott, if just like I couldn't wait to get here, so if someone else wants to come and view Simpson Funeral Museum before you show us around, how would someone do that? Maybe contact information?
Yes. We are by appointment only. I normally point people to our Facebook page, our Simpson Funeral Museum Facebook page, because during 2020, if 2020 wasn't bad enough, someone hacked our museum website.
Oh my goodness.
And it literally just disappeared. So really the only thing we have out there is our Facebook page. So you can take a look at that, and on our profile picture at the top of our Facebook page is our landline phone number for the museum, and it is 434-432-1085. And also our email is Simpson, the letter F, the letter M for Funeral Museum, simpsonfm@comcast.net.
Wow.
And usually just a few days notice, and we can get a tour lined up.
This was a pretty easy, simple phone call, and like I said, we're gonna have this is Valentine's weekend. We're gonna have this bloody red Valentine's.
Yes.
All right. Well, Scott, if you want to I know you've got some other people. If you want to show us around and people then can get a glimpse, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's kind of see what you got.
My pleasure. Let's go. Take that today. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our two big showpieces. Of course, we're going to start 1876. Horse-drawn carriage hearse. 1876, horse-drawn carriage hearse. It is elliptical in shape. If you notice, it's got the curvature on the front, the curvature on the back. Bit of an optical illusion. Most folks, their eye will only key in on this flat side, and therefore they think, oh wow, you would have not been able to have been taller than about 4'6". But that's not the case, because you get about a foot and a half in the front curvature and a foot and a half in the back curvature.
So what's the total length that it goes to?
Honestly, I don't know. I've never measured it. But it is, you know, it has some depth. And of course, this would have been, it would not have been a modern day casket that would have gone in this. It would have been an old antique style coffin. Yeah. But she's beautiful. 1876. We had a full restoration done on it. The gentleman claims he spent 1,000 man hours on it. I don't know. It's what he bills us for. But it has I guess you could call it a piano finish. 22 coats of lacquer, he says.
I was about to say that's a whole lot of lacquer.
Yeah. But it's, you know, it's a beautiful piece. It's about probably 95% original.
95%.
Yeah, you know, like the top had to be replaced. That was kind of gone. This front cushion and drape, you know, is new. That's not old.
Yeah.
One of my
the style.
yes, but the interior drapes are all original. But my favorite detail are the torchlight lamps are sterling silver. You can tell because they are so extremely tarnished. A certain someone here has not found the time to polish them yet this year.
They look good like that.
That's all. Thank you. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that I did a vote, and everyone voted they liked the patina.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. Word of the day for not wanting to polish silver is patina. Okay, so we go from 1876 to 1941. Packard Henning hearse. Still only has 83,000 miles on it. It is Packard blue with black fenders. I think that was pretty standard back in that era. It's not fragile, so if you want to open the doors, feel free. It has won several national first place car show awards for its class. Most notably up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I guess that's a big car show. If you think about what was the first civilization to memorialize their dead and to preserve the remains of the dead, it was ancient Egypt. King Tut, I always reference, what was King Tut? 2,000 years ago? 1,500 years ago? 1,500? I was watching Ancient Aliens the other day, and they were talking about, I'm not the only one that watches Ancient Aliens, right? Okay. And they were talking about Tut, and I think they said 1500 BC. My point is, King Tut is still here. Now, he looks like a little dried up raisin, but he's still here. You know, ancient Egypt, they were ahead, they were technologically light years ahead in so many things. But they were the first to preserve the remains and the first to memorialize, meaning they left something behind for future generations to see, to know that a particular individual lived. And if you really want to be technical, they were the first to build a mausoleum, an above-ground burial crypt for the dead, because that's really what the pyramids were. Up to modern day, and lots of images from Arlington National Cemetery. I don't know if anybody here has ever been to Arlington. If you have not, if you're ever in D.C., you've got to go to Arlington. It's where the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is. It's where President Kennedy, for example, is buried, Supreme Court justices, and of course the thousands of service people who gave their life for our freedoms. And we definitely support that. Someone only takes one picture while they're here. I always tell people this is what you want to take a picture of. We are very, very fortunate to have this. This is a Fisk from, yes. Mr. Fisk was a cast iron wood stove maker in New York in the 1840s. And Mr. Fisk's brother was traveling and died suddenly and had to be buried in that random town where he died. Because back then in the early 1840s, there was nothing made, nothing manufactured to be able to transport a body home for burial. Because how did people travel in the 1840s? Either by steamboat or railroad. Either way, it would take days to have gotten a body home.
Right.
So that troubled Mr. Fisk, and he set about studying the sarcophagus design from ancient Egypt, and he came up with what he called his mummiform. And it is meant to look like a shrouded body. Because up to this point, very common way of burial was literally just to shroud the body, just to wrap it and then to bury it. Okay. And so in 1848, Mr. Fisk applied for and received his patent for his mummiform. And Mr. Fisk, when you see one of these, you just say it's a Fisk, because that's what they've become known as. But Mr. Fisk was the unintentional godfather of the metallic coffin. Because up to this point, it had not dawned on anyone to bury someone in metal. It was just either they shrouded the body or they built just a very rough little wooden coffin. But once Dolly Madison went in one of these and was on display, was lying in repose, either the Capitol or the White House, I can't remember which. But Dolly Madison put Fisk on the map as being something with prestige attached to it. But yeah, this one, we're very fortunate to have this. This belongs to Attila from Funatorium. And he lets us display it because he likes for his pieces to be seen and enjoyed rather than just putting them in a storage facility or something. We're going to talk about some celebrity caskets.
All right.
This was the finest hardwood casket ever made by a company called Marcellus Casket Company. They got their start in 1872 just as an undertaker supply company, and then they evolved over the years and ended up specializing really in South African ribbon grain mahogany for their caskets. And they were the premier hardwood casket company in the country. They were sold about 15 years ago, just basically for the name. And so there is still the name Marcellus, but it's not the same product. Not the same product. So this is the President Reagan, the Mrs. Reagan, President Ford, amongst many, many others. But yeah, this was the finest hardwood casket. It was a 700 masterpiece. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous piece, I think. I mean, I love, that ribbon grain mahogany. I mean, you can't even get that grade of lumber anymore. It's gone. It's gone, yeah. Now, here we have the Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe is right now, as we speak, resting in a Belmont masterpiece. This is, now hers I think was silver. With caskets, it's just like cars. You can get a car in 7 different colors. You can get a car that has 2 doors or 4 doors or a hatchback or whatever. Caskets are kind of the same. Sometimes, maybe only the cap opens, like this one. This one, just the cap opens. Not this piece here. This would be called a hinge cap. And I'll show you some of the other designs. But yeah, Marilyn Monroe is in a beaded, lead-coated steel masterpiece. And what did Belmont add?
Would this be like a Belmont? Would this be like a Rolls-Royce or Mercedes?
This would have been. I'll show you the Rolls-Royce back here. This would have been at the time. This would have probably been the Cadillac.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. There are 3 things that are forever. Copper is forever. Bronze is forever, and chromium stainless steel is forever. Regular gauge steel will rust eventually, okay? Well, Belmont's niche was, we'll take regular gauge steel and we'll dip it in lead paint. Because by coating it in lead paint, that lead paint's not going to, it's going to block the moisture in the metal. It's going to be the barrier in between, and that lead-coated steel is almost as permanent. I don't know at what point it would break down, but it would be pretty close to stainless or copper or bronze. Right. The only problem was, in the 1970s, the Environmental Protection Agency had something to say about burying lead paint in the ground. Right. I can't imagine why. But no,
It's a mystery.
once Belmont couldn't do the lead coat anymore, they didn't have anything. That killed them. So, but it was a very fine product. Very, 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 it was gorgeous. Now here we have the President John F. Kennedy. This is also a Marcellus, just like the Reagan piece. Now this particular casket, Marcellus did two different ways. As you see it with the carving on the top, which is why we call it a carved top, or minus the carved top, meaning it's just smooth, okay? Supposedly, Jackie Kennedy told the funeral director in Washington that the carved top was too garish, too ornate, and so President Kennedy's does not have the carving, but everything else is the same. Gorgeous South African ribbon grain mahogany. This still has the original hand polish that Marcellus was famous for.
That's a beautiful polish.
Yeah. No, it's gorgeous. Yeah, this isn't gloss lacquer. This is hand polish. There's a difference. But yeah, and so this one opens this opens. This is how most caskets that you see now, if you go to a funeral home and to make a selection, and we call it a perfection cut, basically where the entire lid is just cut in half. Whereas the Marilyn Monroe Belmont is a hinge cap where just the cap hinges. It's a bit of a technicality. I know a lot of folks, don't really see much difference, but there is a difference. But yeah, so this is beautiful, beautiful piece. Now behind you, we have a coffin. The first of several that you'll see. And it is very standard coffin shape, wide at the shoulders, narrow at the feet. So not only is it flared from shoulder to head and from shoulder to foot, but it is flared from the top to the bottom.
Right.
So anything where the sides are flared, that fits the definition of a coffin. But yeah, what's really cool is the shipping crate is also coffin shaped, which is very rare because they didn't do that but for a few years, and then they just started building rectangles.
Yeah.
So according to Attila, our antique guy, that makes this combo even more rare and
It's
more
got
valuable.
two of them.
Yes. Okie doke. So now we come on down, and you ask about the Rolls-Royce. This was the Rolls-Royce.
I'm all about it.
This is the Elvis Presley. This is the John Wayne. This is the President FDR, amongst many others. This is called a National Seamless Copper Deposit. Now, there's a lot of information in that. National is the company. Seamless copper deposit means there's not a single welding joint anywhere in this. The tub, of course, minus the handles are put on afterwards, but the entire tub is one piece molten copper poured into a mold. The lid, one piece molten, yeah, it weighs over 800 pounds empty. That would either go in the carotid or the femoral. There are other arteries, but those two are kind of the main points of injection. And if you wanted to slow the flow of fluid down, you would lower it more level with the body.
Right.
If you want to speed the flow of the fluid up, you raise it higher.
So
and
it
higher.
works essentially the same way as an IV bag.
Yes. So what you do not want to do is lower the funnel below the body,
No.
because then it's going to back up. It's going the wrong way. But yeah.
Don't do that.
Yes. One of my favorite things back here, I've got to be honest with you, are the kegs that they would ship formaldehyde in on the railroad.
Oh, that's a stable way to ship it.
My point exactly. I mean, can you imagine? Because I mean, I know
Terrible.
formaldehyde is a very effective chemical. It works, but it's a nasty chemical. I mean, it is. It's just you have to
Works very
take
good
a
for
lot of precautions when you handle or use formaldehyde. So to know that those jokers, of course, they didn't realize how like bad that chemical is. They would just mix it in a vat, and fill it, put it in little kegs, and some of those kegs leaked. They had to leak. So they're literally throwing them up on the rail car, leaving a trail of formaldehyde.
Wait a second. Is that possibly what I know that?
Wow, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I had no idea there was so much to see, explore, and uncover at a funeral museum. But there's still so much more to see and do. If you'd like to visit, please be sure to reach out to Scott. If you'd like to see more of this content, please like and subscribe to Psyched with Nurse Valerie.